Christmas was used to humiliate until a secret shattered the family. That family's Christmas ended before dessert was even served, not because of a fight, not because of shouting, but because someone decided to tell a truth that should never have existed. It all started as an innocent joke, a comment too loud, a remark that drew laughter, except from her. When they asked her to explain why she always ruined the mood, she didn't defend herself. Instead, she asked one simple question. Do you want the truth, or would you rather keep lying today? No one answered. And in that second, everyone understood. Christmas was over, and so was the family. To outsiders, it was just a noisy Christmas dinner. To Helena Duarte, it was the annual repetition of a role she never chose. From a young age, Helena learned that her function in the family was convenient. Don't question, don't confront, don't remember things that made people uncomfortable. She was tolerated, not welcomed. That night, however, something was different. The humiliation came too early. It came in the form of collective laughter, a comment disguised as a joke, a public attempt to put her in her place. The family's mistake was believing Helena still needed to stay silent. They didn't know that for years she had been carrying a truth capable of dismantling the image they all protected, and Christmas was just the wrong stage to hide it. Helena Duarte was 32 years old the Christmas everything changed, but in many ways she had stopped aging at 15. That was when she learned her place in the family hierarchy, somewhere between obligation and inconvenience. Growing up as the middle child in the Duarte family meant existing in a peculiar kind of shadow. Her older brother, Marcus, was the golden son, athletic, charismatic, the one who made their father laugh at dinner parties. Her younger sister, Vanessa, was the baby, the one who could do no wrong, whose tears could bend any rule. Helena was neither exceptional nor fragile enough to demand attention. She was just there. You're too sensitive, her mother would say whenever Helena's eyes welled up at the dinner table. It became a family refrain, repeated so often it turned into truth. When Helena was 12 and cried because Marcus destroyed her science project the day before the fair, her father sighed and said, "Why do you always make such a big deal out of everything?" When she was 16, and her grandmother forgot her birthday, but remembered everyone else's, Vanessa laughed and said, "Don't be dramatic, Helena. She's old." When she was 23 and her engagement fell apart, Marcus patted her shoulder and said, "Maybe you just expect too much from people." The pattern was clear. Whenever Helena felt hurt, the problem wasn't what happened to her. The problem was her reaction. Over the years, she learned to perform a careful dance. She showed up to family gatherings because absence would be noticed and criticized. She smiled at the right moments. She never brought up uncomfortable topics. She became an expert at reading the room, at sensing when her presence was barely tolerated versus when it was required for appearances. Christmas was always the worst. The Duarte family Christmas had its own mythology. The perfect tree, the abundant table, the coordinated outfits for the family photo. Helena's mother, Patricia, planned it like a military operation. Everything had to look flawless, feel warm, appear effortless. But beneath the surface, Christmas was a minefield of old resentments dressed in tinsel. There were the comparisons, subtle and constant. "Vanessa, this pie is incredible. You really inherited Grandma's baking talent." A pause. "Helena, yours is nice too." The slight hesitation said everything. There were the jokes that weren't quite jokes. "Remember when Helena tried to cook Thanksgiving dinner and gave everyone food poisoning?" Laughter around the table. "I didn't give anyone." "Oh, come on, where's your sense of humor?" There were the photographs where Helena always seemed to be positioned at the edge, slightly out of frame, as if the camera itself knew she was optional. And there were the stories. Family lore repeated every year, each one somehow casting Helena as the difficult one, the oversensitive one, the one who couldn't take a joke. She had learned not to correct these stories. Correction was labeled as ruining the mood. What her family never understood, what they never tried to understand, was that Helena had an exceptional memory. While they revised history to suit their narratives, she remembered exactly what was said, when, and why. She remembered who threw the punch, not just who cried after. But remembering was another thing she learned to keep to herself. By her early 30s, Helena had perfected the art of being present while being absent. She could sit through an entire Christmas dinner, contribute to conversations, laugh at appropriate moments, and leave without anyone really noticing what she had or hadn't said. She had become invisible by design. It was safer that way. The alternative, Being truly visible, truly heard, required a level of vulnerability that her family had taught her was dangerous. Every time she had reached for connection, for validation, for simple acknowledgement of her pain, she had been handed dismissal instead. So she learned to survive without being seen. But she never forgot what she heard. She never forgot who said it. And she never forgot the feeling of sitting at a table full of family while feeling completely, devastatingly alone. This Christmas, though, something was different. Helena could feel it the moment she walked into her parents' house, carrying her obligatory contribution to the meal. There was a charge in the air, a particular quality of anticipation that made her skin prickle. Her mother's hug was performative, lasting exactly 2 seconds before pulling away. Marcus's greeting was a head nod from across the room. Vanessa was on her phone, glancing up only to say, "Oh, you actually wore that?" Helena looked down at her dress, a simple green velvet that she'd thought was festive and appropriate. "What's wrong with it?" "Nothing, nothing." Vanessa returned to her phone, smirking. "It's very you." The first microaggression of the evening, delivered before Helena had even set down her purse. She had learned to measure family gatherings by these small cruelties. They were the breadcrumbs that showed her the path she was expected to walk. Head down, mouth closed, emotions contained. But as she moved through her parents' house, greeting relatives and accepting lukewarm compliments, Helena felt something she hadn't felt in years: clarity. She had spent so long trying to be small enough to fit into their narrative that she had nearly forgotten she was a full person with her own story, her own truth, her own worth. Tonight, she realized, she was tired of being small. She had learned to survive without being seen, but she never forgot what she heard. And tonight, she could feel it. They were planning something. They always were. The dinner table was set with Patricia Duarte's usual precision. Crystal glasses at each place setting, cloth napkins folded into elaborate shapes, candlesticks creating a warm glow that would photograph beautifully. Everything designed for the illusion of warmth. Helena took her assigned seat, never at the head, never quite in the center, always positioned where she could be easily overlooked in the family photo. As people settled in, she observed them the way she had learned to observe, quietly, cataloguing details. Her father, Robert, was already on his second scotch, his face flushed with alcohol and holiday cheer. He was the type of man who believed his opinions were facts, and his jokes were always funny. Age had made him more certain of both. Her mother moved between the kitchen and dining room with practiced efficiency, her smile bright and hollow. Patricia had built her identity around being the matriarch of a perfect family. Any crack in that facade was treated as a personal attack. Marcus sat across from Helena, his arm draped around his wife, Jennifer. They had the casual confidence of people who had never been made to feel unwelcome anywhere. Jennifer was scrolling through her phone, probably posting a picture of the table with a caption about gratitude and family. Vanessa sat beside their mother, already sipping wine and laughing too loudly at something on her phone. At 28, she had never had to develop self-awareness. The family had always adjusted to accommodate her, never the reverse. And then there were the extended relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins, who filled in the gaps around the table. Most of them had their own roles in the family system, their own reasons for maintaining the status quo. Helena watched them all, and she noticed something. The glances. Marcus and Vanessa kept exchanging looks, the kind of conspiratorial glances that came with shared knowledge. Their mother, too, seemed unusually animated, touching Vanessa's shoulder as she passed, whispering something that made Vanessa grin. Helena's stomach tightened. She recognized this pattern. She had seen it before at birthdays, at Thanksgiving, at summer barbecues. It was the pattern that preceded a funny story told at her expense, the pattern that came before someone brought up an embarrassing moment from her past, reframed for maximum humiliation disguised as nostalgia. They were planning something. "So," her father began as the appetizers were passed around, "everyone have good traffic getting here." Harmless small talk, but Helena heard the performative quality in his voice. He was warming up. The conversation moved through safe topics, weather, work, holiday shopping, but beneath it, Helena could feel the current of anticipation. People kept glancing at Marcus, at Vanessa, at her mother, as if waiting for a signal. Jennifer leaned over and whispered something to Marcus. He smirked, shook his head slightly. Not yet. Helena cut her food into small pieces, chewing slowly. She had learned long ago that the best defense was to appear unbothered, to give them nothing to react to. "Helena," her mother said suddenly, her voice carrying that particular false brightness that meant trouble, "Vanessa was just telling me about her promotion. Isn't that wonderful? It is, Helena said evenly. Congratulations, Vanessa. Vanessa beamed. Thanks. It's been a crazy year, but really rewarding. I think I finally found where I'm supposed to be, you know. The implication hung in the air. Unlike some people. That's great, Helena repeated. And Marcus and Jennifer are thinking about buying a second property, Patricia continued, as if reading from a script. An investment property, very smart. Helena nodded, seeing exactly where this was going. The recitation of everyone else's accomplishments, the careful omission of asking Helena about her life. She could play this game. She had been playing it for years, but tonight, something was different. Tonight she felt less like a participant and more like an observer of a performance she had been forced to join. And you, Helena? Her father asked, his tone carrying just enough edge to cut. How's everything? The vagueness was intentional. Everything could mean anything, which meant Helena couldn't answer without potentially walking into a trap. Everything's fine, she said. Still at the same job? Marcus asked. Yes. Still in the same apartment? Yes. Still single? Vanessa added, and there it was, the first real jab, delivered with a smile. Yes, Helena said calmly. Well, Patricia said, her voice dripping with false sympathy, I'm sure the right person will come along eventually. You just have to put yourself out there more. Helena had heard this speech before, the gentle implication that her singleness was a failing, a choice, a problem to be solved. I'm not looking right now, Helena said. That's probably for the best, Jennifer added, jumping in. You really need to work on yourself first, you know. Get to a place where you're happy alone before you can be happy with someone. The presumption that Helena wasn't happy, the assumption that her life was somehow lacking because it didn't mirror theirs. Helena set down her fork. Around the table she could feel the energy shifting. They were building to something. This wasn't just casual conversation. This was orchestrated. Marcus cleared his throat. So, Mom, didn't you have that photo you wanted to show everyone? Patricia's eyes lit up. Oh, yes. This was it. Whatever they had planned, it was coming now. Patricia pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos with exaggerated casualness. I was going through old pictures the other day, and I found the funniest one. Helena's heart rate increased, but her face remained neutral. Here it is, Patricia said, turning her phone toward the table. Remember this, Helena? The photo showed Helena at perhaps 13 years old, at a family pool party, mid-sneeze, her face contorted, her eyes closed, water splashing around her. By itself, it was just an unflattering photo. Everyone had them. But the way they were presenting it, the collective lean-in, the anticipatory grins, turned it into something else. Oh my God! Vanessa burst out laughing. You looked like a drowned rat. I forgot about this, Marcus said, grinning. Didn't you cry after this? You did, Vanessa confirmed. You cried because we were all laughing. Helena remembered that day. She remembered being 13 and self-conscious, remembered how they had taken that photo and shown it to everyone at the party, how her cousins had laughed, how she had locked herself in the bathroom and sobbed while her mother told her to stop being so dramatic. I always thought you were too sensitive about that, Patricia said, shaking her head with fond exasperation. It was just a silly photo. The humiliation wasn't the photo itself. It was the context they were removing, the way they were reframing her pain as overreaction, the way they were inviting everyone to laugh at her younger self. Helena looked around the table. Every face showed some version of amusement, some more subtle than others, but all complicit. They thought this was funny. They thought she would laugh too, or defend herself, or get upset. They had no idea what was coming. They thought they were in control. They weren't. Classic Helena, Marcus said, still grinning at the photo, always making a big deal out of nothing. The table erupted in knowing laughter, that particular kind of laughter that bonds people through shared judgment of someone else. Helena sat perfectly still. She didn't reach for her wine. She didn't shift in her seat. She simply existed in the moment, feeling the weight of it, the familiar ache of being the punchline. Do you remember, Vanessa started, barely able to contain her giggles, when she thought we actually forgot her birthday that one year? Oh God, Jennifer said, joining in despite barely knowing the story. What happened? We were just running late with the surprise party, Vanessa explained to the table, but she got all upset and left. We had to call her and tell her to come back. This wasn't how Helena remembered it. She remembered turning 21. She remembered waiting at the agreed-upon restaurant for over an hour, calling repeatedly, getting no response. She remembered finally leaving, humiliated, only to get a casual text 2 hours later. Oh, we decided to do something tomorrow instead. There had been no surprise party. The surprise party had been invented later, a retroactive justification that made Helena's hurt the problem instead of their thoughtlessness. But correcting them now would only prove their point, that she was too sensitive, that she couldn't take a joke, that she was the problem. She's always been like that, her father added, his voice carrying the authority of a patriarch making an official declaration. Ever since she was little. Remember when she got upset about the dog? Helena's hands tightened in her lap. The dog. When Helena was 9, the family had gotten a golden retriever puppy. Helena had wanted to name it Sunny. Marcus had wanted to name it Rex. They had voted, and Rex won, 3-1. A week later, the dog had been hit by a car while Marcus was supposed to be watching it. The dog survived, but Helena had cried for days, not just about the dog being hurt, but about feeling like no one listened to her, like her wants didn't matter. Her father's version of this story, repeated now, was different. Helena got so upset about not getting to name the dog that she wouldn't even visit it in the vet hospital, even after it almost died. A complete reversal of truth. She had visited every day, but the story had been revised, and now everyone around the table nodded sympathetically, as if this childhood story explained everything wrong with adult Helena. The thing is, Patricia said, her tone shifting to something more serious, more therapeutic, we've all noticed that you tend to hold on to things, sweetheart. You don't let things go. The conversation was pivoting. This wasn't just humiliation anymore. This was an intervention. You still bring up things from years ago, Marcus added, like you're keeping score or something. It makes family gatherings hard, Vanessa said, her voice dripping with false concern, like we're all walking on eggshells around you. Helena looked at each of them. They had rehearsed this. The photo had been the opener, the funny icebreaker. But this was the real agenda, to tell Helena publicly, with witnesses, that she was the problem with the family dynamic. We just think, Patricia continued, reaching across the table as if to take Helena's hand. Helena didn't offer it. That maybe you should talk to someone, a therapist, about why you're so sensitive. The table had gone quiet. The extended relatives looked uncomfortable, but no one intervened. This was between the core family, and everyone else was just an audience. Helena felt something strange happening inside her. For years, decades, she had internalized their narrative. She had wondered if maybe they were right, if maybe she was too sensitive, if maybe she did hold grudges, if maybe she was the broken piece in an otherwise functional family. But sitting here now, watching them perform this coordinated attack, disguised as concern, she suddenly saw it clearly. This wasn't about helping her. This was about control. As long as Helena believed she was the problem, she would keep trying to fix herself. She would keep accommodating, keep shrinking, keep accepting their version of events. She would never question their behavior because she was too busy questioning her own. "Helena," her mother prompted, "don't you have anything to say?" Everyone waited. They expected one of Helena's usual responses, an apology, a defense, tears, anger, something they could respond to, something that would confirm their narrative. Instead, Helena picked up her water glass and took a slow sip. Then she set it down carefully. "Are you done?" she asked, her voice calm. The question surprised them. Patricia blinked. Marcus frowned. "Done with what?" Vanessa asked defensively. "With the intervention," Helena said. "With the stories, with the diagnosis. Are you done?" "We're trying to help you," her father said, his voice hardening. "But if you're going to be difficult about it—" "I'm not being difficult," Helena interrupted. "I'm asking if you're finished. Because if you are, I have something to say." The temperature in the room shifted. Patricia's smile became fixed. "Of course you can speak, honey. That's what we want. Open communication." "Do you?" Helena asked. "Of course. Because in my experience," Helena said slowly, "this family doesn't actually want open communication. This family wants compliance." "That's not fair," Marcus said. "Isn't it?" Helena looked at him directly. "When was the last time I said something uncomfortable and you actually listened? When was the last time any of you considered that maybe your memory of an event isn't the only version?" "Here we go," Vanessa muttered. "See?" Helena gestured toward her sister. This is what happens. I'm not allowed to have a different perspective without being dismissed." "You're being dramatic," her father said. "Am I?" Helena felt something unlocking inside her, something that had been held back for so long it felt almost physical. "Or am I just finally saying what I've thought for years, and you can't handle it?" Patricia's voice turned sharp. "Helena, "You're ruining Christmas." And there it was. The accusation Helena had heard 1,000 times, in 1,000 different ways. She was the problem. She was the one ruining things. Not them. Never them. Helena looked around the table, at the faces watching her with varying degrees of discomfort, judgment and anticipation. They wanted her to back down, to apologize, to fall back into her assigned role. She had done that before. Every time. Not tonight. "You want to know why I ruin things?" Helena asked quietly. "You want to know why I'm always too sensitive? Why I hold on to things?" No one answered, but every eye was on her. "Because," Helena said, "I remember what actually happened. Not the stories you tell yourselves. Not the revised versions where you're always right and I'm always overreacting. I remember the truth." "The truth?" Marcus scoffed. "Your truth, you mean?" "No," Helena said. "The truth. The objective. What actually happened truth." "This is ridiculous," Vanessa said, standing up. "I'm not going to sit here and be accused." "Sit down," Helena said. Her voice wasn't loud, but something in it made Vanessa freeze. "I've sat here through years of your stories," Helena continued. "Through years of being the punchline, the problem, the broken one who needs fixing. You can sit through 5 minutes of mine." The room was completely silent now. Patricia looked at Robert, who looked at Marcus, who looked at Vanessa. They were waiting for someone to take control, to shut this down. But no one did, because somewhere, beneath all their certainty, they knew what was coming. The audience realizes she had known this would happen. She had been preparing, and now she was ready. Helena didn't speak immediately. She let the silence stretch, let them sit in their discomfort the way she had sat in hers for years. Then she said, "Before I tell you what I know, I want you to understand something. I've known it for a long time, years, and every single family gathering, every Christmas, every birthday, every Sunday dinner, I've sat here knowing it, carrying it, wondering if I should say it." "Known what?" Robert demanded, but his voice lacked its usual authority. Helena looked at him. "You really want me to do this here? In front of everyone? You're the one threatening to air dirty laundry," Vanessa snapped. "I'm not threatening anything," Helena said. "I'm asking if you want the truth, or if you want to keep pretending." Patricia's face had gone pale. "Helena, whatever you think you know—" "I don't think, Mom, I know." The distinction was important and everyone heard it. Marcus leaned forward. "If you have something to say, say it. Stop being dramatic." Helena almost laughed. Even now, when they were clearly afraid of what she might reveal, they still tried to dismiss her with that word. Dramatic. "Okay," Helena said. She pulled out her phone. "Do you remember 3 years ago, when Grandma was dying?" The shift in topic seemed to confuse them. "Of course we remember," Patricia said carefully. "Do you remember how the will was supposed to be split?" Everyone at the table knew how it had gone. Their grandmother had been relatively wealthy, and she had split her estate 4 ways. Equal portions to Robert, his brother James, and his 2 sisters. It had been fair, expected, uncontroversial. "What does this have to do with anything?" Robert asked. "Do you remember," Helena continued, "how we all went to visit her in the hospital that last week? How you specifically told me not to bother her with visits, that she was too tired, that I should wait?" She had. Helena remembered calling her mother, asking when she should come to the hospital, and Patricia telling her firmly, "Don't come yet. She's exhausted. We're handling it." "We were trying to protect her energy," Patricia said. "No," Helena said. "You were trying to protect your plan." The word hung in the air, plan. "I don't know what you're implying," Robert started. "I'm not implying anything," Helena said. "I'm telling you. I know what you did." 3 years ago, Helena had been working late when she got an unexpected call from the hospital. Not from her mother, but from a nurse who had gotten confused about the family contact list. "Your grandmother is asking for you," the nurse had said. "She's very insistent." Helena had driven to the hospital immediately, confused about why no one had told her grandma was awake and asking for visitors. When she arrived, she found her grandmother lucid and alone. "Helena," her grandmother had said, gripping her hand with surprising strength. "I'm so glad you came." "Of course, Grandma. Mum said you were too tired for visitors, but the nurse called—" "Did she?" Her grandmother's mouth tightened. "I've been asking for you for 2 days. They keep telling me you're busy." Helena had felt something cold settle in her stomach. "I didn't know I would have come." They had talked for an hour. Her grandmother was weak, but her mind was sharp, and she was worried. "Your mother has been very insistent about the will," she said. "She keeps bringing it up, asking me to reconsider certain things." "Reconsider what?" Her grandmother had hesitated, then said, She wants me to reduce James's portion, says he doesn't need it as much, that it should be redistributed to the rest of the family. Uncle James had always been the black sheep, a free spirit who had never pursued wealth or status. The family found him embarrassing. She also, her grandmother continued, her voice dropping, suggested that you shouldn't receive your inheritance directly, that it should go into a trust that she and your father manage. Helena's blood had gone cold. Why? She said you're not good with money, that you're too emotional to handle it responsibly. Her grandmother had squeezed her hand. But I know my grandchildren, I know you, and I've seen how they treat you. That conversation had continued, winding through topics both present and past. Her grandmother had shared things she had noticed over the years, the dismissals, the belittling comments, the way Helena was always positioned as less than. I'm not going to change my will, her grandmother had said firmly. Everyone gets their equal share, including James, and including you directly. But Helena, I need you to know something. She had pulled out an envelope from her bedside table. If anything happens, if they try to contest the will or claim I wasn't of sound mind, I had my lawyer prepare this. It's a video of me discussing my decisions, dated and witnessed, and I've named you as the keeper of it. Helena had taken the envelope, not fully understanding why it would be necessary. I'm giving you this because I trust you, her grandmother had said, and because I know that your family has made you feel small. But you're not small, Helena. You're the one with the strongest spine, even if they've convinced you otherwise. Her grandmother had died 2 days later. The will had been read. Everything had gone as her grandmother intended. Equal shares, no trusts, no restrictions. But Helena had kept the envelope, and she had started paying attention. I don't understand what story you're trying to tell, Patricia said, but her voice was strained. I'm not telling a story, Helena said. I'm telling you that I know you tried to manipulate Grandma into cutting James out and controlling my inheritance. I know because she told me. And I have proof. The table erupted. That's absurd, Robert shouted. Grandma was medicated, Marcus added. She didn't know what she was saying. Actually, Helena said calmly, she did, and she prepared for this exact reaction. She had her lawyer record a video of her stating her wishes and her reasons, specifically to prevent anyone from claiming she was incompetent. Patricia's face had drained of all color. You're lying. Am I? Helena looked at her mother. Do you want me to show everyone the video? Right here, right now? Silence. That's what I thought. But Helena wasn't done. The thing is, she continued, that was just the beginning. Once I started actually paying attention, I noticed other things. She looked at Marcus. Like how you told me you couldn't invest in my business because you didn't have liquid cash, but then 3 months later bought that investment property. Marcus's jaw clenched. She looked at Vanessa. Like how you told me you couldn't watch my dog for a weekend because you were too busy, and then posted pictures of yourself at a spa retreat that same weekend. Those aren't secrets, Vanessa said defensively. Those are just lies, Helena finished. They're lies, small ones, but they add up. They create a pattern. She looked at her father. And the biggest pattern is this. Every time I've needed something from this family, support, honesty, basic respect, I've been told I'm asking for too much. But when any of you need something from me, I'm expected to provide it without question. Robert stood up. I won't sit here and be attacked in my own home. Then leave, Helena said simply. He stared at her, stunned. This is my house, he said. And I'm your daughter, Helena replied. But that's never stopped you from treating me like an inconvenience. The cost of carrying this knowledge for so long had been enormous. Every family gathering where she smiled and played along, she had been aware of the lie beneath the surface. Every time they criticized her, called her sensitive, told her she was the problem, she had bitten her tongue to keep the peace. But peace for whom? Not for her. Peace for them. Peace that came at the cost of her dignity, her truth, her reality. I've protected you, Helena said quietly. For years, I've let you tell your versions of events. I've let you paint me as the difficult one. I've carried your secrets and your lies and your convenient memory lapses. Why? Patricia whispered. Because I thought that's what family meant, Helena said. I thought love meant sacrifice. I thought if I could just be good enough, patient enough, understanding enough, you would eventually see me, actually see me. She paused. But you never did, and you never will. Because seeing me would require you to confront who you are. The truth didn't need to be fully spoken. It just needed to exist. And now everyone knew it did. The silence that followed Helena's words was different from the earlier silences. This wasn't anticipation or discomfort. This was reckoning. Marcus recovered first. He always did. Years of being the golden child had given him an unshakable confidence that he was right, even when he was wrong. "You know what your problem is, Helena," he said. "You've built this entire narrative where you're the victim and we're all villains. But life isn't that simple." "You're right," Helena agreed. "Life isn't simple, but some things are. Like whether or not you lied about having money to invest in my business while investing in property the next month. That was different." "How?" "Because—" He stopped, realizing any explanation would prove her point. "You don't understand business." "No," Helena said. "I understand family. Or at least, I understand what family is supposed to be." Jennifer, who had been silent throughout, put a hand on Marcus's arm. "Maybe we should all just calm down." "I am calm," Helena said. And she was. For the first time in years, maybe her entire life, she felt perfectly calm, clear. "I'm the calmest I've ever been, actually." Patricia was crying now, delicate tears that didn't disturb her makeup. Helena recognized this tactic too, the tears that made Patricia the victim, that forced others to comfort her rather than deal with the issue at hand. "How can you say these things?" Patricia asked. "After everything we've done for you." And there it was, the transactional nature of their love after everything we've done for you, as if raising a child was a debt to be repaid, as if providing basic parental care was a favor that purchased perpetual compliance. "What have you done for me?" Helena asked. It wasn't rhetorical. She genuinely wanted to know how her mother would answer. "We raised you, we fed you, clothed you, educated you." "Those are legal requirements," Helena interrupted. "Not gifts. Those are the minimum obligations of being a parent." "Don't you dare," Robert started. "What?" Helena turned to him. "Don't I dare what? Point out that doing the bare minimum doesn't make you exceptional? That keeping a child alive and housed isn't the same as loving them?" Her father's face turned red. "You're being incredibly disrespectful, and you've been incredibly dismissive for 32 years, but somehow your behavior never counts as disrespectful. Only mine does." Vanessa slammed her hand on the table. "This is insane. You're trying to make us feel guilty for what? For teasing you? For having lives? For not catering to your every emotional need?" Helena looked at her sister, really looked at her. Vanessa had never learned accountability because she'd never needed to. The family had always rearranged itself around her comfort. "I never asked you to cater to me," Helena said quietly. "I asked you to care about me. There's a difference." "We do care about you," Patricia insisted. "Do you?" Helena asked. "Or do you care about the version of me that makes you comfortable? The one who accepts your stories, who apologizes when you hurt her, who shrinks herself so you can feel bigger?" She looked around the table at the extended family, the aunts and uncles and cousins who had watched this dynamic play out for years without intervening. "Here's what I need you all to understand," Helena said. "I didn't come here tonight planning to do this. I came here thinking maybe this year would be different. Maybe this year you'd see me." "We do see you," Marcus said. "No," Helena replied. "You see what you want to see. You see the sensitive one, the difficult one, the one who doesn't fit your image of what this family should be." She pulled out her phone and held it up. "I have proof of everything I've said. The video from Grandma, text messages, emails. I've documented 3 years of contradictions, of lies, of gaslighting. I've done this not because I wanted to use it, but because I needed to know I wasn't crazy." Patricia's tears stopped. Her face hardened. "You've been spying on us?" "No," Helena said. "I've been protecting myself. There's a difference." "By collecting evidence?" Robert's voice dripped with disdain. "That's paranoid behavior, Helena." "Is it?" Helena asked. "Or is it what you do when your family constantly tells you that your memories are wrong, that your feelings are invalid, that your reality doesn't exist?" She set her phone down on the table. "I'm going to ask you all one question," she said. "And depending on how you answer, we'll know if there's anything left to salvage here." Everyone waited. Helena took a breath. "Do you actually believe I'm the problem with this family? Do you genuinely think that every conflict, every hurt feeling, every uncomfortable moment over the past 32 years has been my fault? That I'm just inherently difficult, and you've all been saints for putting up with me?" The question hung in the air like smoke. It was simple, direct, and it demanded honesty they had never been required to give. Patricia opened her mouth, closed it. Marcus looked away. Vanessa crossed her arms defensively. Robert reached for his scotch. "Because if you do," Helena continued, "if you truly believe that, then we have nothing more to discuss. You can continue living in your version of reality, and I'll live in mine." "And if we don't?" Jennifer asked suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her, surprised. She shrugged. "I'm just asking. What if we admit that maybe things haven't been fair?" Marcus stared at his wife. "Jennifer, no, I want to know," Jennifer said, looking at Helena. "What happens if we admit you're right?" Helena hadn't expected this. She had prepared for denial, for anger, for them doubling down. She hadn't prepared for anyone to actually ask what came next. "I don't know," Helena admitted, "because that's never happened before." The honesty of that statement hit like a physical blow. 32 years, and no one had ever simply admitted they might be wrong about her. "Well, you're not getting an admission from me," Robert said, standing up. "I won't apologize for how I raised my children. I did my best, and if you can't appreciate that, then that's your problem, not mine." He walked out of the dining room. Patricia looked between Helena and the doorway her husband had disappeared through. Helena could see the calculation happening. Who did she support? The daughter speaking uncomfortable truths, or the husband maintaining comfortable lies? Patricia stood up. "I think you should leave, Helena." There it was. The choice had been made. "Of course you do," Helena said softly. "You came here to ruin Christmas," Patricia said, her voice shaking. "You brought all this up deliberately to hurt us, to make yourself feel superior." "I brought it up because you humiliated me," Helena interrupted. "You started this. I just finished it." "Get out," Patricia said. Helena looked at Marcus, at Vanessa. They wouldn't meet her eyes. She looked at Jennifer, who looked genuinely conflicted, at the extended family members who were staring at their plates. No one stood up for her. Of course they didn't. Standing up for her would require them to confront their own complicity, their own silence, their own comfort with the status quo. Helena stood slowly, gathering her purse. "Before I go," she said, "I want you to know something. This didn't have to happen this way. If at any point tonight, or any Christmas before this, you had simply listened to me, heard me, acknowledged me, none of this would have been necessary." She walked toward the door, then paused. "You want to know why I hold on to things? Why I remember every slight, every dismissal, every lie? Because I kept waiting for you to care enough to ask why I was hurt. I kept thinking that someday you'd want to understand me instead of fix me." Helena looked at her mother one last time. "But you never did, and you never will." She walked out. Behind her she heard the explosion, voices rising, accusations flying, the family turning on itself now that she was gone. But she didn't turn back. She wasn't there to defend herself. She was there to free herself. Helena sat in her car in her parents' driveway for a long moment, her hands on the steering wheel, her breath creating small clouds in the cold December air. She didn't turn on the ignition immediately. Instead, she sat with what had just happened, feeling it in her body, the trembling in her hands, the tight knot in her chest that was slowly beginning to unravel. Inside the house, she could see movement through the windows, shadows passing back and forth. She wondered what they were saying now that she was gone, whether they were comforting each other, validating their narrative, or whether Jennifer's question had planted seeds of doubt. It didn't matter, she realized. Their processing wasn't her responsibility. Helena started the car and drove away. She didn't drive home immediately. Instead, she found herself heading to the city's Christmas light display in the park, a sprawling collection of illuminated tunnels and sculptures that she used to love as a child. She parked and walked through the displays alone, her breath visible in the cold air, her phone buzzing repeatedly in her pocket with messages she didn't check. The lights were beautiful, peaceful, and the families walking around her, laughing, taking photos, holding hands, reminded her of what she had always wanted and never quite had. But the ache of that realization felt different now. Before, it had felt like her failure, her inadequacy, her inability to be the right kind of daughter. Now it felt like grief, clean, honest grief for something she had never actually possessed. After an hour, she sat on a bench near a tunnel of blue lights and finally looked at her phone. 17 missed calls, 34 text messages. She scrolled through them, cataloging the patterns. From her mother, "How could you do this to us? On Christmas of all days. Your father is devastated. Call me immediately." From Marcus, "You're out of line. This is why no one wants you around. You owe everyone an apology." From Vanessa, "I hope you're happy. You've always been jealous of us. Don't bother coming to any more family events." Helena read each message without emotion. They were predictable. Each one reinforced the narrative. Helena was the aggressor, they were the victims, her truth was an attack. But there was one message that surprised her. From Jennifer, I don't know what to say except, I believe you. And I'm sorry I didn't speak up more. Marcus is furious with me for even texting you, but I needed you to know you weren't wrong. Helena stared at that message for a long time. It was small. It didn't change anything, really. Jennifer couldn't undo years of complicity, couldn't retroactively defend her. But it was something. It was one person saying, I see you. What you experienced was real. Helena typed a response. Thank you. That means more than you know. Then she put her phone on silent and sat with the lights. Over the next hour, she let herself feel everything she had suppressed during dinner. The anger at being dismissed. The hurt of being misunderstood. The exhaustion of carrying secrets to protect people who had never protected her. But also the relief. The strange, unexpected relief of finally being honest. She had spent so long managing their emotions, controlling her reactions, making herself smaller to fit their narrative. And in one night she had stopped. She had told the truth, and the truth had been messy and painful and uncomfortable, but it had been real. Helena thought about her grandmother, who had seen her clearly when her own parents couldn't, who had trusted her with the truth, with the evidence, with the task of protecting herself. I'm the one with the strongest spine, her grandmother had said. At the time, Helena hadn't believed it. She had felt broken, weak, perpetually wrong. But sitting here now, having walked away from a family that demanded her silence, she understood what her grandmother had meant. Strength wasn't about never feeling pain. It was about feeling it and choosing truth anyway. Helena pulled out her phone again and opened the video her grandmother had recorded. She had watched it only once before, when she first received it. Now, she watched it again. Her grandmother sat in a chair in her lawyer's office, looking directly at the camera. Her voice was steady, her mind clear. My name is Margaret Duarte, and I'm recording this on September 15th to clarify my final wishes regarding my estate. I want to establish unequivocally that I am of sound mind, that I have not been coerced or manipulated, and that the decisions reflected in my will are entirely my own. She went on to outline the equal distribution, then addressed specific concerns. There has been pressure from my son Robert and his wife Patricia to alter my will in ways that would exclude my son James and place restrictions on my granddaughter Helena's inheritance. I want to be clear. These requests do not reflect my values or my assessment of my children and grandchildren. Her grandmother paused, then looked directly into the camera. Helena, if you're watching this, it means someone contested the will or questioned my judgment. I want you to know that I see you. I've always seen you, and I know what it's like to be the truth teller in a family that prefers comfortable lies. Tears rolled down Helena's face as she watched. You are not too sensitive. You are not too difficult. You are honest. And honesty is often uncomfortable for people who have built their lives on maintaining appearances. Do not let them convince you that your clarity is a flaw. The video ended. Helena sat in the parking lot, crying in a way she hadn't let herself cry in years. Not the suppressed, quiet tears of someone trying not to be noticed, but deep, body-shaking sobs of someone finally allowing themselves to grieve. She grieved for the little girl who believed she was the problem. She grieved for the teenager who tried so hard to be good enough. She grieved for the young woman who kept hoping things would change. And she grieved for the family she had wanted, but never had. But beneath the grief was something else. Possibility. For 32 years, Helena had organized her life around her family's narrative. She had made decisions based on what would keep the peace, maintain her place, prove her worth. Now that structure was gone, and in its absence was something vast and terrifying and exhilarating. Choice. She could choose how to spend her holidays. She could choose who to trust with her truth. She could choose to build relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligatory blood ties. She could choose herself. Helena wiped her face and started the car. As she drove home, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from Uncle James, the black sheep, the one who had been cut out and reinstated, the one who had always been kind to her, in his quiet way. She answered. Helena, his voice was gentle. I heard what happened. Well, I heard your mother's version. Want to tell me yours? And for the first time in her life, someone was asking for her side of the story, not to contradict it, but to understand it. Helena pulled over and told him everything. Uncle James listened without interrupting, without defending, without minimizing. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. I'm proud of you, he finally said. For what? For destroying Christmas. For surviving, he said. And for finally choosing yourself. I know how hard that is in this family. They talked for another hour. He shared his own stories of being the outcast, of trying to fit into a family that valued conformity over authenticity, of the relief he eventually felt when he stopped trying. "The thing they never tell you," Uncle James said, "is that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is leave, not because you don't care, but because staying requires you to betray yourself." When they hung up, Helena felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. Not hope for reconciliation. Hope for herself. What destroyed the family wasn't the truth. It was the years it spent being buried. 3 days after Christmas, Helena's phone finally stopped buzzing. The initial flood of angry messages had given way to a heavy silence. No one called. No one texted. It was as if she had ceased to exist in the family narrative. She had expected this. It was the punishment for breaking ranks, exile. What she hadn't expected was how little it hurt. She kept waiting for the crushing loneliness, the desperate need to apologize just to be let back in. Instead, she felt lighter, the weight of performing, of managing their emotions, of protecting their lies. It was gone. On the 4th day, Marcus called. Helena considered not answering, but curiosity won. "What?" she said flatly. "We need to talk." "Do we?" "Helena." His voice was strained in a way she'd never heard before. "Jennifer left." Helena sat up. "What?" "She packed a bag and went to her sister's. She said she can't be part of this family if we don't acknowledge what we did to you." Helena was silent, processing. "She showed me text messages," Marcus continued. "Things you sent her over the years, things I didn't know about, things Mom and Dad said to you that I didn't hear." "You heard them," Helena corrected. "You just didn't listen." "I know." His voice cracked. "I know, and Helena, I don't know how to fix this." "You can't," Helena said simply. "Not with me, anyway. But you might be able to fix things with your wife." "How?" "By believing her when she tells you something is wrong, by caring about how your actions affect other people, by choosing honesty over comfort." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry." The apology hung in the air. Helena waited to feel vindicated, triumphant. Instead, she just felt tired. "Are you sorry for what you did?" she asked. "Or sorry that it finally has consequences?" "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe both." "Does that matter?" "Yes," Helena said. "It matters." She hung up. That evening, her mother called. Helena answered on the last ring. "Your father and I think you owe us an explanation," Patricia said without preamble. "An explanation for what?" "For destroying our family, for humiliating us in front of everyone, for turning people against us." Helena noticed the framing. She had destroyed, humiliated, turned. They were the passive victims of her actions, rather than active participants in their own behavior. "I didn't turn anyone against you," Helena said. "I told the truth. What people do with that truth is their choice." "Uncle James has been calling us," Patricia said, asking questions, bringing up things from the past. "This is your fault." "No," Helena said. "This is your consequence. There's a difference. How can you be so cold?" "I'm not cold, Mom. I'm just done." "Done with what? With your family? Done pretending that what you call family is actually love?" Patricia's voice sharpened. "After everything we sacrificed for you—" "Stop," Helena interrupted. "Stop with the martyrdom. You didn't sacrifice for me. You did the minimum required by law and act like it deserves eternal gratitude. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. And you can't handle it because you've never had to. Everyone has always protected your feelings. Even me. If you don't apologize—" "You'll what?" Helena asked. "Cut me off. Exclude me. Mom, you've been doing that my entire life. The only difference now is that I'm choosing it too." Patricia made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a sob. "I want my daughter back," she said. "Which daughter? The real one or the one who made you feel good about yourself?" "That's not fair." "Fair?" Helena almost laughed. "You've spent 32 years being unfair to me. Now you want fairness. What do you want from us?" Patricia demanded, her voice breaking. It was the first real question her mother had asked in years. Helena thought about it carefully. "I want you to acknowledge what happened. Not your version where I'm sensitive and dramatic. The actual version where you dismissed, belittled, and gaslit me for decades. We didn't—" "There it is," Helena said. "You can't even do it. You can't even admit that your behavior might have hurt me, because you're making it sound worse than it was. To you, maybe, because you weren't on the receiving end." Patricia was crying now. "I love you. I know you do," Helena said quietly. "But love without respect is just control. And I don't want to be controlled anymore." "So that's it? You're just done with us?" "I'm done with this version of us," Helena said. If you ever want to build something real, something based on honesty and mutual respect, I'm open to that. But I won't come back to the dynamic we had. You're asking us to change everything. No, Helena said. I'm asking you to see me, really see me. Not the daughter you wanted, but the one you have. She could hear her mother breathing on the other end, could almost feel the internal struggle. Finally, Patricia said, I don't know how to do that. It was the most honest thing her mother had said in years. Then I guess we're done here, Helena said softly. She hung up before her mother could respond. Over the next week, the family system that had existed for decades began to fracture in ways Helena hadn't anticipated. Jennifer officially filed for separation from Marcus, citing irreconcilable differences in values. Uncle James stopped coming to family dinners, sending polite declines with no explanation. Two cousins reached out to Helena privately, sharing their own stories of feeling dismissed or diminished within the family structure. Vanessa sent a single text, I hope you're happy. You've destroyed everything. Helena didn't respond, because Vanessa was wrong. Helena hadn't destroyed anything. She had simply stopped holding broken pieces together and calling it whole. She didn't win by shouting. She won by staying intact while everything around her fell apart. January arrived with surprising gentleness. Helena had expected the first holiday season without her family to feel empty, diminished. Instead, it felt spacious. She spent New Year's Eve with Uncle James and his partner, Michael, people she had always liked but never really known, because family gatherings were always dominated by her parents' narrative. They cooked together, laughed about nothing important, watched the countdown on TV. It was simple and warm and real in a way her family gatherings had never been. Thank you, she told James, as the night wound down. For believing me. I didn't have to believe you, he said simply. I recognize the pattern. Same things they did to me, just different specifics. How did you survive it? I left, he said. Best decision I ever made. Worst pain I ever felt. Both things are true. Helena understood exactly what he meant. The weeks that followed developed their own rhythm. She went to work, came home, read books she'd been meaning to read, took walks without checking her phone every 5 minutes for family drama. She started therapy, not because she believed she was broken, but because she wanted to understand the patterns that had kept her trapped for so long. Her therapist, Dr. Chen, asked questions that no one in her family ever had. What do you need in a relationship to feel safe? What does respect look like to you? What would change if you stopped trying to earn love and simply accepted it as freely given, or not at all? Helena discovered she didn't know how to answer these questions. She had spent so long focused on what her family needed from her that she'd never considered what she needed in return. In February, she received a letter in the mail, not an email, not a text, an actual physical letter. It was from Marcus. Helena, Jennifer, and I are in couples therapy. She won't come back unless I do the work, as she puts it. I thought she was being dramatic, but my therapist says the same thing. We've been unpacking Christmas, and other Christmases, and Thanksgivings, and just everything. I've been a terrible brother. I don't even know if you'll read this. You have every right not to. But I wanted you to know that I'm trying to understand, really understand, not just apologize to make it go away. Jennifer showed me all the messages you sent her over the years, the ones where you asked for help or support and I didn't respond, the ones where you tried to explain how you felt and I dismissed you. I read them like they were written to a stranger, and I was furious at the person who ignored them. Then I realized that person was me. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve the chance to try, but I'm working on myself. And I wanted you to know. Your brother, if you still claim me, Marcus. Helena read the letter 3 times. She felt something unfamiliar. Not quite forgiveness, not quite hope. Something more like acknowledgement. He saw it. Finally, he saw it. She didn't respond immediately. She wasn't sure what to say or if she wanted to say anything at all, but she kept the letter. In March, Dr. Chen asked her, "What does freedom look like for you?" Helena had to think about it. "Not having to explain myself," she said finally. "Not having to defend my reality. Not having to make myself smaller so other people can feel bigger." "And are you free now?" "I'm getting there." It was true. Each day, without the weight of her family's expectations, she felt more like herself. She was discovering preferences she'd suppressed, opinions she'd hidden, parts of her personality that had been too inconvenient for family consumption. She liked direct communication. She valued consistency over charm. She needed people who could handle conflict without making her the problem. These weren't flaws. They were just her nature. In April, Helena had dinner with Jennifer. They met at a small restaurant halfway between their apartments, neither one sure what to say. "Thank you," Helena said finally, "for speaking up." "I should have done it sooner," Jennifer replied. "Years sooner." "Why didn't you?" "Honestly, because it was easier not to. Because confronting it would have meant confronting Marcus, and confronting Marcus would have meant confronting myself for staying with someone who treated his sister like that." She looked down at her wine glass. "I told myself it wasn't my place, that it was between you and your family, but silence is a choice too, and I chose wrong." "You're choosing differently now," Helena said. "We're trying," Jennifer said. "Marcus and I. He's actually listening now. Not just waiting for his turn to talk, but actually hearing what I'm saying. It's strange and uncomfortable, and sometimes I don't know if it's going to work. But it's real." "I'm glad," Helena said, and meant it. They talked for hours, about family systems, about learned behaviors, about the difference between peace and quiet. "Do you think you'll ever talk to your parents again?" Jennifer asked. "I don't know," Helena admitted. "Part of me wants them to understand, but I'm learning that understanding might never come, and I can't build my life around waiting for it." "That's probably healthy," Jennifer said, "but it sounds lonely." "Sometimes," Helena agreed. "But it's a different kind of lonely than being invisible in a room full of family." Jennifer nodded. She understood. When they parted ways, Jennifer hugged her tight. "You were right," she whispered, "about all of it, and I'm sorry it took me so long to say it." Helena drove home that night, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Seen, not by everyone, not by the people she had once desperately needed it from, but by someone, and that was enough. Helena hadn't lost her family. She had just stopped pretending she belonged to one that never existed. By the time next December arrived, Helena had built a life that looked nothing like her old one. She had dinner every week with Uncle James and Michael. She had coffee regularly with Jennifer, whose separation from Marcus had evolved into a cautious reconciliation built on new foundations. She had made friends, real friends, who asked questions and listened to answers, who remembered details about her life and followed up later. She had started a journal, not to document evidence, but to honor her own experience. And she had learned something crucial. She didn't need her family to validate her pain for it to be real. When Christmas approached again, she didn't feel the old dread. There was no obligation to attend gatherings where she'd be tolerated, but not welcomed. No need to brace herself for humiliation disguised as humor. No requirement to shrink herself into uncomfortable spaces. Instead, she made plans with the people who had chosen to see her. On Christmas Eve, Uncle James hosted a small dinner. Just 4 people. Him, Michael, Jennifer, and Helena. They cooked together, talking and laughing. They shared stories, real ones, messy ones, honest ones. When Helena mentioned something difficult from her childhood, no one told her she was too sensitive. They just listened. "I've been thinking about last Christmas," Helena said over dessert. "The nuclear option Christmas," James said with a slight smile. "Yeah, that one." Helena paused. "I've been trying to figure out if I regret it." "Do you?" Jennifer asked. "No," Helena said slowly. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that years of smaller, kinder attempts to be heard didn't work, but I don't regret finally telling the truth." "Truth is a funny gift," Michael said. "Nobody wants it until they're ready for it." "Were they ever going to be ready?" Helena wondered aloud. "Maybe not," James said. "Some people spend their whole lives avoiding truth because lies are more comfortable. That's their choice, but it doesn't have to be yours." After dinner, Helena stood on James's porch, looking at the Christmas lights strung along the street. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Helena, this is Dr. Patricia Duarte. I'm writing from my work email because I didn't think you'd read a message from my personal number." Helena's heart rate picked up. "I've been in therapy since March. Your father hasn't, but I have. My therapist has asked me to do something very difficult, to write down specific instances where I hurt you, without justifying them or explaining them away, just acknowledging them. I have a list of 47 items so far. Some are big, most are small. All of them add up to a pattern I didn't want to see. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness or reconciliation. My therapist says that's not my place to ask for. I'm writing to say you were right about the dismissal, about the gaslighting, about treating you as the problem instead of listening to your pain. I don't know if this matters to you. I don't know if it's too late. But I needed you to know that someone in this family finally sees what we did to you. You deserved better. You deserved to be heard, valued, protected. I'm sorry I wasn't the mother who could do that. Mom Helena read the message 3 times, tears rolling down her face. It wasn't enough to repair everything. It wasn't an invitation to return to the old dynamic. But it was something. It was acknowledgement. She didn't respond immediately. She wasn't sure what to say or if she wanted to open that door. But she saved the message. Because sometimes the gift isn't reconciliation. Sometimes it's just knowing that your truth finally landed. Some truths don't save families, they save people. A year after the Christmas that ended everything, Helena understood something she couldn't have grasped before. The hardest part of telling the truth isn't the moment you say it. It's everything that comes after. It's living with the consequences, the exile, the judgment, the way people rewrite history to make you the villain. It's sitting with the grief of losing relationships you desperately wanted, even if they were never what you needed. It's choosing yourself over and over again, every time that choice feels impossible. But here's what no one tells you about breaking free from a family that required your silence. The space that opens up is terrifying at first. You've spent so long organizing your life around their narrative, managing their emotions, performing the role they assigned you. Without that structure, you don't know who you are. But gradually, in that empty space, something grows. Your real self, the one that was always there, buried under layers of compliance and people-pleasing and desperate attempts to earn love that should have been freely given. That self is messy, it's imperfect. It has needs and boundaries and opinions that won't always be convenient for others. But it's real, and real is worth more than perfect. Helena had learned that some families are prisons disguised as homes. They demand loyalty, but offer no safety. They require vulnerability, but provide no protection. They speak the language of love while practicing the habits of control. And leaving those families, even when they're blood, even when it breaks your heart, is sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself. Not everyone would understand. People who'd never been dismissed would say she was too harsh. People who'd never been gaslit would say she should try harder. People who'd never carried the weight of family secrets would say she should have stayed quiet. But Helena had learned to stop explaining herself to people who were determined to misunderstand her. She had learned that peace sometimes looks like walking away, that strength sometimes looks like crying alone in your car, that healing sometimes requires destroying the very thing you spent years trying to save. As she sat in her apartment on this second Christmas Eve, warm, safe, surrounded by people who actually saw her, Helena thought about the girl she used to be, the one who believed that if she could just be good enough, small enough, understanding enough, her family would finally love her properly. She wished she could tell that girl. It was never about being enough. They were never going to see you because they needed you to stay invisible. But someone else will see you. And that someone is you. Not every Christmas ends in reconciliation. Some end in freedom. And some truths are worth the loneliness that comes after. Because being alone is temporary. But abandoning yourself is forever. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever had to choose between your peace and their comfort, you're not alone. Your truth matters. Your experience is valid. And you deserve relationships where you don't have to shrink yourself to fit. Share your story in the comments. Let's build a community where being seen is the standard, not